Have you ever wondered why a simple color attracts you so much that you feel more at ease wearing it, seeing it, or simply imagining it? Have you ever stopped to consider why certain colors evoke a deep unease within you, even when there's no logical explanation? It's almost as if they activate something quiet, ancient, hidden deep inside. Today we'll take a journey, one that perhaps you've never taken before, with Carl Jung as our guide. And maybe, just maybe, at the end, you'll discover that your favorite color isn't merely an aesthetic preference. It's a recognition, a portal, a crack in your soul through which, unbeknownst to you, the most hidden and denied aspects of your true self seep through. The promise of this video is simple, yet powerful. By understanding what your favorite color truly means, you'll gain the ability to glimpse a part of your shadow, a part you've always ignored. Not because it wasn't important, but precisely because it was too profound for you to confront. We're not talking about popular astrology or those empty personality quizzes. We're diving into the subconscious, into archetypes buried in time, into long-lost desires, rejected memories, and the denied facets of your very being, what Jung called the shadow. For him, the shadow isn't simply the bad side of a person. It's everything that hasn't been integrated, everything you've rejected in yourself in order to fit in, to survive, to avoid being abandoned, humiliated, or punished. And that's where color comes onto the scene, because it's not just a visual preference, it's a symbol, a mirror, a calling. Let's do a quick exercise. Close your eyes for a moment and think about your favorite color, the color you'd choose without hesitation to paint the walls of your soul. Blue, red, green, purple, black, white, gold, beige. Now, hold that answer in your mind, because throughout this video you'll begin to understand what it reveals about you, and even more importantly, what it's been trying to tell you for years, but you've been refusing to hear. Carl Jung always warned us that what you don't become conscious of comes back as fate, and perhaps color is the most subtle, symbolic, and elegant way for your subconscious to express itself, to express a longing for integration, a yearning for liberation, an aspiration for authenticity. Have you ever noticed how some people always dress in the same colors? Like a woman who only wears black, perhaps trying to express unspoken pain, or a man who insists on shades of blue, desperately seeking peace, order, and control over an internal chaos that he himself doesn't acknowledge. Have you noticed how some children, when left to their own devices, cling to a single color as an emotional anchor? Why does this happen? Colors carry frequencies. They're like musical notes that vibrate on an emotional, energetic, and symbolic scale. Red, for example, evokes associations with power, sexuality, compulsion, but also with anger, desire, urgency. Blue evokes calm, depth, confidence, but also melancholy, detachment, emotional numbness. Green is the archetype of healing, growth, hope, but also of stagnation, envy, apathy, and so on. Yet few people realize that a person's favorite color almost never reflects who they already are. Instead, it reflects who they want to be, but can't. What they yearn for, but don't know how to achieve. What's hidden deep within their soul, like a forgotten continent, and it manifests itself in the quiet choice of a shirt, a bedsheet, a wall, a lipstick. You love red? Perhaps your shadow hides suppressed rage, a fear of being desired, a terror of acknowledging your own strength. You're drawn to blue? Maybe your shadow is a stifled cry of sadness that you've never allowed yourself to release. Or perhaps your desire for control masks a deep fear of losing everything. You know that person who says, "Oh, I adore white, peace, purity, cleanliness." Yes, sometimes an obsession with white is a desperate attempt to wash away guilt, to escape chaos, to deny one's own instincts. And those who prefer black may not just be elegant. They could be concealing long-held grief, unexpressed anger, or even a deep need for protection from emotional intrusion. Now think about how many times you've said, "My favorite color is this," without even considering why. How many times have you felt better simply by seeing that color, never questioning what it's actually compensating for? What if, deep down, your favorite color is the perfect symbol of what you've lost within yourself? Jung said that the soul speaks through symbols, and symbols don't shout. They whisper. They dance between the lines. They hide in choices that the mind can't explain. And one of the most powerful of these choices is color. Want an eye-opening example? A woman once consulted a psychoanalyst because she could no longer experience joy in life. Everything seemed gray, dull, monotonous. She said she loved the color yellow, but hadn't worn it since her mother died. The analysis revealed something shocking. Yellow, for her, was the color of childhood, of spontaneous joy, of freedom, and by avoiding yellow, she was unconsciously refusing to live. She carried a subtle guilt for continuing to live. Her shadow wasn't just sadness, it was a denial of joy. And you? What is your favorite color trying to tell you? When you understand what it means for you, inside you, not outside, you'll gain a key that unlocks the door to your authenticity, the door that separates who you've become from who you truly are. And here begins the great dilemma. Are you ready for it? Because integrating the shadow requires courage. It requires shedding layers of persona. It requires looking into the eyes of that part of yourself you swore you'd never touch. It requires the maturity to acknowledge that even what you dislike most can teach you something, and that sometimes what you love the most is precisely what you haven't yet been able to become. That's why this video won't give you ready-made answers. It will give you questions, reflections, mirrors, because true healing doesn't come from someone telling you who you are. It comes from the moment you yourself gather the courage to ask yourself and to hear the answer. In the next installments of this video, we'll delve deep into each color and what it symbolizes in the language of the subconscious. We'll reveal how these frequencies are connected to Jungian archetypes, and more importantly, how to use them to reconnect with what you've rejected in yourself, not to condemn yourself, but to liberate yourself. But for now, I'll leave you with a question that might accompany you for the next few days. Did you choose your favorite color, or did it choose you? You might think you know why you like a particular color. Maybe you say that blue calms you, red invigorates you, white purifies. But what if the real reason has nothing to do with preference, and everything to do with a lack, an absence, with what you needed most and didn't receive, or with something that was stifled inside you, like a child's whisper that you one day stopped hearing? Think back to your childhood. Remember the emotional atmosphere in which you grew up. Remember how you learned to hide anger, to hold back tears, to mask enthusiasm so as not to seem too much. Remember the moments when you emotionally shrank so as not to bother those around you. And now, consider, maybe your favorite color is precisely what symbolically embodies what you lost within yourself. A 58-year-old woman who lives alone since her children moved out told me that she had always loved the color green. She said it brought her peace, freshness, something alive. But in a more intimate conversation, she admitted that she felt her life had become stagnant. Everything was at a standstill. Feelings, plans, even her body's natural cycles seemed suspended, frozen. She identified with the color green because, deep down, she longed to grow again from within, but couldn't, and her love for that color was a cry for help. Green, for her, wasn't who she was. It was who she wanted to become again. Another example. A 66-year-old man, a widower, a retiree, who for decades had been the family's mainstay, a provider, disciplined, even cold. When asked what his favorite color was, he replied, "Lilac. I've always loved lilac. It reminds me of the sky when evening slowly falls." And there was the key. He wasn't lilac, he was gray, but he loved lilac because it was the only emotional memory he still retained from a time when he could allow himself to be gentle. That color was a keepsake, like a folded note hidden in his chest. Do you see how, little by little, we discover that our preferences aren't random? They're emotional choices, made by those parts of us that haven't yet given up on being seen. So when Jung spoke of shadow integration, he didn't want us to become experts in psychology. He wanted us to stop pretending that everything's okay when we know it's not, to stop ignoring what hurts us, what we lack, what drains us, because all of that, pain, absence, anger, fear, is part of wholeness. And here's the crucial point, the difference between being and using. You can use blue to appear calm, but be full of anxiety inside. You can use red to look confident when insecurity rages within. You can decorate your home in earthy tones to appear grounded, but crumble as soon as the door closes. Color doesn't define you. It betrays you. How many times have you felt like you're playing a role? How many times have you felt disconnected from your own life, as if something is wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Perhaps that something is hiding in your shadow, and perhaps your favorite color is the only trace it's left you. Let's do something practical now. Take a piece of paper. Write the name of your favorite color. Then write what that color evokes in you. Then write the opposite of that feeling. And now, honestly ask yourself, is that opposite present in my life? Does it dominate? Does it take root? Because right there, hides the shadow. A person who loves blue because it brings them peace might actually be leading a life full of unresolved internal or external conflicts. A person who loves orange might have spent a lifetime trying to suppress their spontaneity, the brilliance that was curtailed, the laughter that was interrupted, the touch that never happened, the attention that didn't last long, the hugs that were denied. Each color is a silent cry for reconnection. Now, pay attention to what you avoid. What color unsettles you? What color evokes an inexplicable feeling of discomfort? Perhaps you avoid a color not because of aesthetics, but because of trauma. I knew a woman who couldn't stand the color red. We discovered that she associated it with uncontrollability, violence, nudity. She had grown up being punished for expressing herself too much, for speaking loudly, for having desires. She suppressed her power to such an extent that she transformed a color into a symbol of danger. And what was trauma became aesthetics. She lived a life without realizing that by avoiding red, she was avoiding herself. If you're between 30 and 65 plus, like most of our viewers, you've surely already experienced the weight of carrying others' burdens. You may have already been a parent to your parents. You may have already held back words so as not to cause conflicts. You've likely already accepted less than you deserved for fear of being alone. And all of this creates a shadow that quietly takes over you over time, until something small, like a color, starts to scream. And that scream comes in the form of boredom, emptiness, nameless sadness, a desire to disappear, anger at yourself, meaninglessness, insomnia, restlessness, for no apparent reason. And then you ask yourself, what's wrong with me? When in reality the question should be, what did I leave behind without noticing? It's at this moment in life, usually after 40, that the subconscious begins to demand what has been ignored. And Jung knew this. That's why he said that the task of the second half of life isn't growth, but individuation. That is, it's no longer about conquering the world, but about returning to oneself, about integrating what has been forgotten, suppressed, denied. And in this journey, symbols like color, which seem trivial, become valuable maps. You might be wondering, but how do I start this integration really? How do I bring this shadow to light without losing myself or harming myself? And it's here that knowledge must turn into practice. Reflection must become routine. Clarity must translate into small, conscious actions. It is with this goal in mind that we have created an e-book, The Jungian Method, 5 minutes a day for inner peace and clarity of mind. A simple, direct and profound guide to help you apply these concepts in your life, even in the face of daily sweat, pain, and doubts. It is available in the attached comment to this video, waiting for you as a first step to reconnect with what lives in you. And sometimes all your soul needs is for you to hear it, even if she speaks through color. Have you ever wondered if the color you love today is the same one that captivated you as a child? And if it has changed, what exactly inside you has changed with it? Sometimes when a person says, "Now I prefer neutral tones," they're not just speaking of a color palette. They're revealing a quiet transition in their soul, a rejection of one part, an acceptance of another. After all, no one stops loving a color for no reason. Something must die for another color to be born within us. And what is that death, if not a process of symbolic replacement? Perhaps you loved yellow for many years, but now, at 50, it seems too childish. Why? What in you has stopped allowing itself to be light-hearted? Where exactly has lightness become heavy? Because sometimes what we reject because it seems silly was precisely what was keeping us alive. And then you begin to understand. Your favorite colors tell your emotional story better than many memories. They have no filters. They don't lie to please. They appear unbidden. And yet, you've perhaps never stopped to talk to them. Let's break that cycle now. Think of the color you least tolerate, the one you avoid in clothing, interiors, objects. What feelings does it evoke in you? What's the first memory that comes to mind when you think of it? A smell, a person, a place. If you feel comfortable, share it in the comments. Sometimes, just seeing what others are feeling is the beginning of putting together the puzzle of our collective unconscious. But why do we do this? Why do we reject certain colors so strongly, sometimes even with a degree of disdain? The answer can be as simple as it is brutal, because that color symbolizes a part of us that was wounded, or coerced, or shamed. Colors reminding of traumas, embarrassments, guilt, like erasing tracks so as not to return to a dangerous place, but also losing the way back to oneself. One woman told me that she couldn't stand the color orange. "It makes me sick," she said. During our conversation, we discovered that her mother was obsessed with orange. Clothes, walls, pots, everything. And that mother was cruel, unstable, unpredictable. The color had become a reminder of fear disguised as decor. Orange was buried along with the spontaneity that the daughter had never been able to develop. As a result, she grew up rigid, controlling, neutral. Her personality was, in essence, a suit of colored armor. And how many of our armors have a color? Have you ever wondered? Does your environment reflect who you are, or who you're trying to hide? Your room, your wardrobe, your living room, the news feed on your phone? The color that dominates your daily life speaks of much more than style. It speaks of an attempt at protection, or a desire for self-expression, or both at the same time, or a desperate cry for healing. Now, the uncomfortable question: what if you're living surrounded by a color that deep down makes you sick? It may seem like an exaggeration, but it's not. Imagine a person suffering from deep depression who paints all the rooms in shades of gray and dark blue. The color reinforces their state. It amplifies it. It infects it. Not out of bad intentions, but out of unawareness. Color becomes an echo of pain, and that echo, day after day, shapes mood, disposition, thoughts. That's why the conscious use of color can be therapeutic, transformative, radical. You can use red, not because it's aggressive, but because you want to awaken courage within yourself. You can use blue not because it's calming, but because you want to remind your body that peace is still possible. You can decorate your home in shades of green not because it's trendy, but because you're quietly asking for rebirth. And here, it's worth pausing. Look around you right now, literally. Where are you reading this? What colors surround you? Do they envelop you comfortably? Do they weigh you down? Do they say, stay or leave? The environment is either a continuation of your inner state or an attempt to compensate for it. Share in the comments. What color surrounds you today? And what do you feel when you notice it? Carl Jung said that we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Sometimes becoming aware of color is already a giant step in that process, because color is the most immediate symbol between the invisible and the visible. It's the place where the inner meets the outer. Let's delve deeper. You've heard of emotional synesthesia. It's when a color activates not just a memory, but a whole body state. A woman who sees a certain shade of blue and feels an urge to cry, without knowing why. A man who can't stand the color purple because it reminds him of the furniture in the house where he suffered abuse. A woman who loves earthy tones because they remind her of her grandmother's house, the only place where she felt safe. This isn't coincidence. It's the symbolic language of the subconscious. The body remembers what the mind has forgotten, and if you allow it, it will lead you back to what you need to integrate. But integration requires more than just observation. It requires symbolic action, not grand, but profound. You could, for example, choose an item in the color that most unsettles you, and wear it for a few minutes. Feel the discomfort. Breathe with it. See what surfaces. Record it. Not to punish yourself, but to invite that part back, as if you're inviting an old friend to talk after years of silence. And sometimes, by doing this, something opens. A memory that was blocked. A dream that takes on meaning. An unexpected emotional reaction. An old anger. A trapped tear. It's at this moment that you realize what was outside you, in the color, was always inside, waiting to be accepted. And then you ask yourself, what else am I projecting without realizing it? That question becomes the key, because if color reveals you, other things can reveal you as well. And you don't notice. The type of music you listen to, the words that irritate you the most, the places where you feel small, the people who attract you or repel you. Everything. Absolutely everything is symbolic when you choose to see it that way. And color is one of the first steps on that ladder. But what? When you start to notice that your favorite color has changed because you have changed, it is wonderful and frightening at the same time. Because a new color may mean new pain, or new freedom, or a new personality that is still forming. Sometimes you start to love pinks after a breakup, as if regaining a tender side that has been repressed for years. Sometimes black attracts after mourning, not as sadness, but as strength, restraint, a ritual of solitude. It all depends on how you listen. Color, when it is revealed, is a kind of collective mirror, and here in our channel we create a space where you can see yourself without haste, without shame, without judgment, because the color you love is the part of you that you most want to love. Imagine yourself entering a completely white room, a white floor, white walls, a white ceiling, no windows, no furniture, just you and white color. At first it seems like peace, purity, space, but after a few minutes something changes. The silence of white begins to scream. Your mind starts to wander. Time stops. You begin to hear yourself with unpleasant clarity. The color that seemed freedom turns into isolation. The lack of contrast becomes a prison. This is an experience that seems abstract, used in sensory experiments in neuropsychology clinics. Being in monochrome environments can affect the emotional and cognitive state of a person in less than 20 minutes. Colors influence us deeply, even when we think we ignore them, and this happens constantly every day. According to a study by the University of Roche, in corporate environments with a prevalence of cool colors, such as blue and gray, productivity increases, but the level of motivation and human warmth tends to decrease. In rooms where warm tones are used, such as orange and yellow, there is an increase in interaction and a feeling of guest-friendliness, but also greater distraction. And now think, what if your home constantly causes emotions that do not correspond to what you need at the moment? Let's go further. There is a little-known fact. 85% of our purchase decisions depend directly on colors. And this is not just marketing. It is a subconscious phenomenon. Red products sell faster. Dark blue inspires confidence. Greens are used by brands that want to evoke a sense of emotional security. And this is used daily by companies. But almost no one notices that the same mechanism works within us when we choose a coat color or a wall color, or even a mobile wallpaper. These choices are not neutral. They reflect how you want to be perceived, and moreover, how you want to perceive yourself. When you wear a black blouse, you may be unconsciously trying to protect yourself. When you choose pink, you may want to show the tenderness that the world has absorbed. Color is what the soul wears when the mouth is silent. Real story. A therapist told of a case with a 40-year-old patient who, after a traumatic divorce, decided to completely change the interior of his house. He threw away red cushions, bright paintings, colored carpets, replaced everything with shades of gray, white, and blue. At first he said that it was to make the atmosphere more mature, but over time he realized that he had created a kind of visual mourning, an emotionally anesthetized setting. By changing the colors, he unconsciously brought the house into line with his internal state, and this led to the consolidation of this state. The setting turned into a closed mirror, without light, without input, without output. How many houses are in such a state today? How many rooms are emotional graves? And the most important question, how many people have adapted so much to the state of anesthesia that they no longer notice how emotionally exhausted they are? A study conducted by the Center for Environmental Psychology in Stockholm showed that elderly people living in homes with a predominance of neutral colors are more likely to suffer from mild to moderate depression, even when all other factors, financial situation, health, family support, are under control. The simple fact that they are surrounded by lifeless shades reduces brain activity associated with pleasure and mood. It is not a coincidence. It is the body's reaction to the light. However, there is also another side to the matter. One day an artist gave an interview for a documentary about emotional rescue through art. She said that after losing her husband to cancer, she spent several years living in gray. Literally her clothes, her paintings, her workshop. But one day, accidentally taking a tube of orange paint, she felt an inexplicable impulse. She painted a huge, almost aggressive circle in the middle of an unfinished canvas. She cried for several hours, and that day she realized, Orange was what was locked in her chest. It was warmth, life, a cry of creative energy that had not died with him. It was just in a coma. From that moment, her color palette changed, and together with it, her ability to feel. Have you ever had such a moment? A small, impulsive gesture that seemed to open an emotional sluice? Share with us in the comments. This moment is not only beautiful, it is a mirror for all of us. Now look inside yourself. What color do you need, but you avoid? What color have you always wanted to use, but thought it didn't suit you? Where did that idea come from? Who told you that yellow wasn't for you? Who taught you that purple is too extravagant? Who said that green is for alternative people? Who limited you with the colors of other people's expectations? You know what that says? That often the palette of your life was drawn by other hands, parents, schools, relationships, culture, traumas, and at some point you believed that it was your truth. But it is not so. It was only a conditional reflection. And the most important question, do you want to continue living with an inherited palette, or are you ready to create your own? This decision is deeper than it seems, because it involves reconnecting with dormant desires, with forgotten opportunities, with repressed joys. It assumes the courage to say, I am what I am, even if I was never allowed to be myself. Carl Jung argued that true freedom is being who you are, not who you think you should be. And what if your favorite color is just that, the spark of your real personality trying to break through the cracks of routine? We must learn to listen to our own signals. Color is one of the most honest signals, the quietest, the most faithful. Therefore, I propose the following. This week, introduce into your life, even in small details, the color that most reflects your forgotten truth. Wear an accessory, paint something, write something in that color, touch it, and see what happens. See what responds to you from your inner self. And if you want, tell about it in the comments. What color did you choose, and what did you feel when you let it into your life? Sometimes the beginning of healing lies in something as simple as letting color fill the void. And by doing this, who knows, maybe, for the first time in a long time, you will allow your soul to color your home. And what if everything you thought was personal taste was actually language? A quiet call from your subconscious trying to awaken parts of you that you have forgotten, suffocated, or rejected. So far we have explored the colors we love, which we avoid, which surround our home and our bodies, and how each carries a fragment of our shadow, not as something evil, but as something that belongs to you legally, but never accepted. Now it's time to understand what to do with it, because knowing that there is a shadow hidden in color doesn't change anything if you continue to live as if you didn't know it. Information without integration becomes time, knowledge that binds, because it reveals, but does not transform. And Jung never wanted you to know more. He wanted you to live better. Today, in this part of our journey, we will take another step. We will connect the dots. We will clarify the meaning of all this. We will pass through the symbolic veil and turn the symbol into action, intuition, decision, perception, into transformation. Perhaps the most important point is the following. Your favorite color reveals not only the part of your shadow that you deny the most, it also reveals the energy that is ready to return, ready to be embodied, ready to become strength. You don't reject red just because you're afraid. You reject it because you're ready to let that anger turn into presence, into resilience, into a force for transformation. When you like the sea, it is not because you lack peace. You love it because your spirit is trying to teach you to immerse yourself, not to escape from the world, but to take root in its depths. But how to do it? First step, honor the symbol. To honor the symbol is to look at it with respect, attentively, like you would look at a person who is trying to tell you a truth about you that no one else has dared to tell. Almost color. That stop treating it as a decoration. It start treating it as a bridge to where? To who you are. Not to what you show, and not to who you have learned to seem, but to who your soul wants to be, to that essence that you felt in childhood, before comparisons, fears, masks. Want a real example of how this can change everything? A 39-year-old woman named Eliza. For almost 20 years she wore mostly black clothes. She said that she felt more elegant, more confident, but gradually she felt that she was losing herself, that her energy was decreasing, that the days passed, and she felt more and more in armor. In therapy, she was asked about her favorite color in childhood. She answered orange, warm, bright, alive, orange, like a summer sunset, like the dress that she wore on her 7th birthday and never forgot, orange like the laughter that she lost along the way. The following week she bought an orange scarf, only this, a scarf. She wore it at home in silence, but that day she cried like a person who found what she didn't even know she had lost. And after that, orange gradually returned to her life. Along with it, creativity, spontaneity, the desire to sing in the shower, to dance alone, to feel whole. It seems silly, it seems a trifle, but it is such small gestures that touch the soul. You don't need to destroy your life to be reborn. Sometimes it is enough to change lenses. Color, the way you choose what surrounds you, what touches you, what represents you, because what you wear says about you. But more than that, what you wear shapes you. The color you wear changes your emotional field. It influences you, it guides you, it invites you, and you can accept it or continue living with the emotional autopilot on. What do you choose? If you have reached this place, you have probably already felt something moving inside you, some memory, some feeling, some desire. Do not ignore it. Write it down. Bring it to consciousness, because the subconscious needs only a subtle invitation to start collaborating. And when it realizes that you are looking at it sincerely, it opens up. This openness is a big turning point, because integrating the shadow is not about facing a monster in the dark. It is about turning on the light and discovering that it was you, pressed in the corner, afraid of not being accepted. And if there is something that heals that fear, it is a gesture of approximation, a look with kindness. Let what belongs to you, however strange or intense it may seem, take place inside you. Carl Jung said that the greatest act of courage is not fighting what is outside, but reconciling with what is inside. The light that you love or reject is the messenger of that reconciliation. Do not ignore it. Do not rationalize. Feel it. Feel it with your whole body. Feel it with your skin, eyes, heart, and then turn that feeling into action. And so came the most important moment of this video. It's time to turn everything you've learned into practice. So, in the next episode, I will show you a detailed but simple step-by-step how to apply this knowledge in your personal life. Let's together build a way to integrate your colors, your shadow, and your truth in a process of emotional and spiritual connection, direct, accessible, and transformative. Because one knowledge is not enough. It is necessary to live what you know. You do not need to change your whole life at once. You don't need to dive into a radical transformation to start reconnecting with yourself. Often healing comes not as a result of great revolutions, but in small, recurring, sincere gestures. One color, one choice, one pause, a new look at the old mirror of the soul. What we have seen so far was not just a reflection on aesthetic tastes. It was a symbolic immersion, an intimate journey to the most denied part of oneself, who and which, as a paradox, contains within itself the seed of your integrity. And now it is time to turn this immersion into a path, to turn this understanding into practice, because true wisdom is not what you understand, it is what you apply. So I have prepared for you a strategic plan of symbolic and emotional connection with your shadow through the language of colors, a path of 7 steps, 7 invitations, 7 cracks, through which your soul can breathe more freely again. And begin. Choose a color from which to start the reunion. Don't choose the one you already love. Choose the one you avoid, the one that causes unease, discomfort, or disdain. Remember, the shadow is not in what you have already accepted, but in what you keep under lock and key. Write this color on a sheet of paper, let it look at you, and in silence ask, what do you want to show me? 2. Revive your emotional memories associated with this color. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. Remember when you first felt something for this color, a feeling, a memory, a person. What was happening? Were you a child? Were you alone? Were you afraid? Were you ashamed? What feeling was this color related to? Write down everything that comes to mind. Without filter, without censorship, even if it seems meaningless, write it down. 3. Use this color in an intimate and safe environment. No need to expose yourself to everyone. Enough to add a small detail, a candle, an accessory, a small object containing the rejected color. Put it together where you will see it every day. Feel what it evokes in you. Look at your thoughts, at your body, at your mood. Such symbolic, even subtle exposure triggers the integration process. 4. Express color through creativity. Write a short text in which this color will be the main character. It can be a letter to her, a poem, a memory, a dream. If you prefer to draw or write, this will also work. The main thing here is to create a channel, a bridge, a way of communication between you and what that color represents for you emotionally. 5. Relate color to a liberating action. Now that you have allowed this color to exist around you and inside you, associate it with a small but symbolic action. For example, use this color to write a note asking for forgiveness, or use it to get something special for yourself, or go for a walk wearing clothes of this color. The idea is to turn discomfort into a gesture, symbol into ritual. Now this color is your ally. 6. Talk to someone about it. This can be someone you trust or even an anonymous comment to this video if you want. But don't keep this experience only for yourself. By sharing, you expand it, you confirm it, you consolidate it. Pain subsides in silence, but turns into dialogue, and you are not alone on this journey. Other people here are also regaining their lost colors. Sharing is an act of courage and healing. 7th, develop new relationships with the colors around you. From this moment on, look at your home with new eyes, at your wardrobe, at your choices. Ask yourself, what am I repeating out of habit? What am I refusing out of fear? And most importantly, what is my body and soul asking for? But I have not yet gathered the courage to answer. Maybe it's time to add a little pink to your room, a little blue to your vacation, a little more yellow to your gray days. Color, when it is chosen consciously, is a medicine for the soul. This plan is not complex, but it requires presence. It requires truth. It requires that you do not treat your life as a fixed script, but as a constantly changing landscape, where each color can be a new chance for rebirth. And if you feel that this journey has touched something inside you, if you understand that there is much more in you than you thought, then perhaps now is the most appropriate time to take another step forward, with lightness, clarity, and purposefulness, which is why we have created an ebook, LUD Jungian Method, 5 minutes a day for inner peace and clarity of mind. It is a direct, accessible, and transforming path for those who want to apply Jung's teaching in everyday life in a simple and effective way. In it, you will find daily practices that will help you recognize, integrate, and transform your shadow into light, including through the symbolic language that awakens you colors. The ebook is available in the attached comment to this video. This may be the first practical step you take today for yourself. Step back, step you connection, step conscious choice in favor of a more whole and true life. If it touched your heart, I lovingly invite you to meet it. And before finishing, I want to ask you something. If this video made you think, if you saw yourself in some part, if you remembered something, put like under the video. This will help us to convey this message to more people who, like you, are looking for something deeper. If you want to subscribe to the channel, Plenitude Embracing Reflection. Here, each video is a journey. I hug you. I invite you to live more consciously and sensitively. And finally, share your experiences in the comments. It can be a word, a color, a story. You can do it anonymously if you want. But remember, your truth, said with courage, can become healing for someone else.